Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
Selamat sore semua.
For the past few days, I've been reading the news.
Jadi selama 2 hari terakhir ini saya selalu membaca berita.
And it's not good news.
Dan bukan berita yang baik.
And the, excuse me, sorry, hold on. Share. Okay. And the news is very, very bad.
Dan ini merupakan berita-berita yang sangat-sangat buruk.
Either the president or the prime minister of Lebanon just stepped down after 9 months in office.
Salah satu perdana menteri dari Lebanon, is it right? Lebanon,
yeah.
Oke. Baru saja mengundurkan diri.
And he's been only in office for 9 months.
Dan dia hanya menjabat selama 9 bulan.
So right now, Lebanon has no working government.
Jadi Anda bisa bayangkan saat ini di negara Lebanon, mereka tidak punya pemimpin yang mengatur negaranya.
So there's a riot happening right now.
Dan sehingga menyebabkan kericuhan terjadi saat ini.
South Africa is also going through a riot.
Dan Afrika Selatan juga saat ini sedang mengalami kericuhan.
Why? Because their former president is placed in jail by the current president.
Kenapa? Karena presiden mereka yang sebelumnya itu sedang dipenjarakan oleh presiden yang sekarang.
So people are in riot for this decision.
Sehingga orang-orang ini marah dan membuat kerusuhan atas keputusan yang dibuat ini.
Iraq just a few days ago had a hospital that blew up because of an oxygen tank.
Dan di Irak ada rumah sakit yang baru saja terbakar karena meledaknya tangki oksigen.
People were there to get oxygen, but the oxygen tank blew up. People are angry.
Bayangkan orang-orang di sana antri untuk mendapatkan oksigen, tapi tabung oksigen itu malah meledak sehingga orang-orang menjadi marah.
And so 92 people died.
Sehingga ada 92 orang yang meninggal.
And you know, the sad thing, this is not the first hospital. This was the second hospital that blew up because of an oxygen tank.
Dan Anda bisa bayangkan bahwa ini bukan rumah sakit yang pertama yang meledak. Ini merupakan rumah sakit kedua yang meledak karena meledaknya tabung oksigen.
So you can understand why people are angry.
Jadi Anda bisa bayangkan kenapa orang-orang menjadi marah.
And then to top it off, Europe is in flood.
Dan saat ini, sorry, say it again.
Europe is in a flood. Banjir.
Oh, dan saat ini Eropa juga sedang dalam masalah banjir.
About 120 people died.
Dan 120.000 orang meninggal.
No, just 120.
Oke, 120 orang meninggal.
And yesterday, based on the data I received, people who in Indonesia, the number of cases that went up is about 54,000 people.
Dan berdasarkan berita yang saudara bisa dengarkan bahwa per hari kemarin jumlah orang warga negara Indonesia yang sudah terinfeksi virus COVID ini sudah mencapai 54.000.
The total is about 2 million, but per day is 54,000 now.
Secara total itu sudah mencapai 2 juta, tetapi per kemarin setiap hari itu kasusnya bisa bertambah sebesar 54.000.
So we can see there is so much bad news that it seems that fear is growing.
Dan saudara bisa lihat dengan begitu banyaknya berita-berita buruk, artinya rasa ketakutan ini semakin bertumbuh.
But can we be addicted to fear?
Dan dapatkah kita menjadi kecanduan terhadap rasa ketakutan?
One of my favorite, you could say, not tokoh, person that I like to read quotes is from Mahatma Gandhi.
Jadi ada sebuah kutipan dari seorang yang terkenal yaitu Mahatma Gandhi.
And this is what he said.
Dan ini yang dia katakan.
Fear of disease killed more men than disease itself.
Dikatakan bahwa ketakutan akan penyakit itu membunuh lebih banyak manusia daripada penyakit itu sendiri.
How does this happen?
Bagaimana ini bisa terjadi?
We've seen corona and we've heard news over and over again how many people have died over corona.
Setiap hari kita mendengarkan berita tentang corona dan setiap hari kita mendengarkan berapa banyak orang yang meninggal karena corona.
But is it the corona itself or is it the fear that has led us to die?
Tetapi sebenarnya yang membuat kematian ini tinggi adalah penyakit corona itu, apa ketakutan kita akan penyakit corona.
I want to show you a video clip of how stress in the form of anything, whether it's fear or anger, can affect our immune system.
Saya mau menunjukkan sebuah video yang akan menunjukkan bagaimana ketakutan atau kemarahan itu bisa mempengaruhi imunitas tubuh kita.
We now understand that there's a complex biochemical link between stress, the immune system, and illness. When we're stressed, the brain causes the release of chemicals which go through the bloodstream and activate the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands, in turn, give the body a shot of some very potent hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. Both give us a boost of energy, highly useful for survival. But when the stress is continuous and unremitting, cortisol continues to be released into the bloodstream. One of the side effects of cortisol is to suppress the activity of our immune system, leaving us vulnerable to infection and disease. Lower the stress, and you lower the risk of infection.
So I'll recap to you what you just watched.
Jadi saya akan menyimpulkan apa yang baru saja Anda saksikan.
So when we are stressed or when there's any negative feeling like fear or afraid,
jadi pada saat kita menjadi stres atau pada saat kita menghadapi perasaan negatif,
there's the pituitary gland in our brain. The pituitary gland, the upper glandular pituitary in our brain sends a signal to the adrenal gland.
Jadi gini, ada sebuah kelenjar di otak kita yang mengirimkan signal kepada adrenalin kita.
Yeah, and this adrenaline gland will produce two hormones called adrenaline and cortisol.
Dan adrenalin ini akan memproduksi dua hormon yang dua hormon ini adalah adrenalin dan kortisol.
Now, this results in you having fast breath, like your breath starts getting really fast.
Jadi hasilnya adalah kita bernafas itu menjadi terengah-engah, ngos-ngosan.
You can sweat more than usual.
Dan kita menjadi keringatan lebih keringat daripada biasanya.
Your heart rate increases.
Detak jantung kita meningkat.
Your blood pressure increases.
Dan juga otomatis tekanan darah kita juga meningkat.
Now, there is a benefit of having this adrenaline and cortisol.
Sebenarnya ada keuntungan dari punya produksi adrenalin dan kortisol ini.
That is, you get a boost of energy, as you saw in the video.
Jadi seperti yang Anda lihat di video, hasil dari produksi adrenalin ini, kita punya energi yang lebih.
But there is a bad side effect.
Tetapi ada side effect yang buruk.
And that is the cortisol, when it's being released into the blood continuously, even more than a minute, it suppresses the immune system.
Jadi kortisol sendiri kalau terus-menerus masuk ke tubuh kita bahkan lebih daripada 1 menit, maka itu akan menekan sistem imunitas tubuh kita.
1 minute of stress, 1 minute of fear, 1 minute of anger leads to 6 hours your immune system is suppressed.
Jadi di sini kita bisa lihat bahwa 1 menit dari stres, 1 menit dari rasa takut, 1 menit dari kemarahan, itu menghasilkan 6 jam imunitas tubuh kita yang jatuh, yang turun.
So imagine 10 minutes of when you're infected from the disease, 10 times 6 means 60 hours. Your immune system is suppressed.
Bayangkan pada saat Anda stres akan berita-berita tentang penyakit selama 10 menit, Artinya Anda memiliki imunitas tubuh yang turun selama 60 jam.
That's why Mahatma Gandhi says fear of the disease kills rather than the disease itself.
Itulah sebabnya Mahatma Gandhi mengatakan bahwa ketakutan akan penyakit itu bahkan lebih membunuh daripada penyakit itu sendiri.
The Bible says, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bone.
Kitab Amsal mengatakan bahwa hati yang gembira adalah obat yang manjur, tetapi semangat yang patah mengeringkan tulang.
So how does a broken spirit in the form of stress dries the bone?
Jadi bagaimana stres itu bisa mengeringkan tulang?
So in your bone marrow, this is where it produces stem cells.
Jadi di dalam bone marrow is sumsum, right? Ya,
Yes.
jadi di dalam sumsum tulang kita itu sebenarnya memproduksi stem cell.
So this stem cell contains the red blood cell, the platelets, and the white blood cells.
Jadi stem cell itu sendiri terdiri atas sel darah merah, platelets, dan juga sel darah putih.
So when we have an infection,
Pada saat kita terinfeksi,
the brain cells and signal saying, okay, there's an infection, we need to kill the infection.
jadi otak kita akan mengirimkan signal bahwa oke, ini ada infeksi yang terjadi dan kita perlu memperbaiki infeksi ini.
It produces antibodies.
Sehingga secara otomatis tubuh kita akan memproduksi antibodi.
But before the antibodies can be formed, the white blood cells have to go in first as the first line of defense to kill the infection.
Tapi sebelum antibodi itu terbentuk, maka sel darah putih harus maju duluan sebagai tentara untuk membunuh infeksi itu.
That's why when we go to when the doctor tells us to get a blood test and he sees the white blood cell count go up, he knows there is an infection because the body is trying to fight the infection.
Itulah sebabnya kalau kita pergi ke dokter, lalu dokter menyuruh kita untuk melakukan cek darah dan kemudian hasil cek darahnya menunjukkan sel darah putih yang meningkat, maka dokter langsung tahu, oh di dalam tubuh kita pasti ada infeksi.
But if you're even angry, afraid, or anything of a negative emotion, the cortisol will suppress this production in the bone marrow.
Tapi pada saat menghadapi ini, kemudian Anda memiliki rasa takut, pikiran-pikiran negatif, atau kemarahan-kemarahan, maka hormon kortisol akan membunuh produksi daripada stem cell ini.
That's why Mahatma Gandhi says, fear of the disease kills men more than the disease itself.
Itulah sebabnya Mahatma Gandhi kembali mengatakan bahwa ketakutan akan penyakit membunuh lebih besar daripada penyakit itu sendiri.
And even the Bible says, a broken spirit drieth the bones.
Itulah sebabnya juga di dalam Alkitab disebutkan bahwa semangat yang patah mengeringkan tulang.
So, fear can be addictive if you keep on feeding the fear.
Sehingga rasa takut itu bisa menjadi sesuatu kecanduan kalau kita terus memberi makan rasa takut itu.
I would like to show you a video, a short clip video about a news anchor woman who talks about the current news of today.
Saya ingin menunjukkan kepada Anda sebuah video yang menunjukkan bagaimana caranya berita itu dibawakan.
Okay, I have to flip back and forth between the presentation and the video files because the video files have subtitles, whereas when I put it in my presentation, the subtitles doesn't come out.
Jadi saya harus agak switch ke file yang berikutnya karena file yang ini tidak bisa masuk ke dalam presentasi.
Can you see my screen now?
Oke.
Okay. The name of this news anchor is Carrie Lake.
Yang membawakan berita ini adalah Carrie Lake.
And she's talking about what's happening in the US and the news that's happening in the US.
Dan dia berbicara membawakan berita tentang apa yang terjadi di Amerika Serikat.
Now, there's a little bit of things that it's only Americans understand, maybe in general. When she calls right wing, she's talking about conservative people. When she talks about left wing, she's talking about liberal people.
Jadi pada saat nanti ada bahasa right wing, itu berarti dia sedang berbicara tentang orang-orang yang konservatif. Dan pada saat dia bicara, dia mengucapkan kata-kata left wing, itu sebenarnya gambaran dia menunjuk kepada orang-orang yang liberal.
Okay, so this is subtitled in Bahasa for those of you who struggle with English. I hope the translation wisdom, my friend, is understandable.
Semoga Anda bisa mengerti melewat apa yang sudah ditranslate di video ini.
I do believe that a lot of the media wants us to be afraid and angry. I really value the truth and honesty, and I didn't feel that the media was interested in that anymore. My name is Carrie Lake, and this is my story. I was born and raised in Bettendorf, Iowa, part of the Quad Cities. So I was watching the Today Show and Tom Brokaw, and that was the first time I thought, is this a job I could do? This looks really interesting. And I remember being a little girl in Iowa, laying in the grass and looking up and seeing a plane, because planes never flew low because they were never landing anywhere near us, but they were flying way up there. And I thought, one day I'm going to be on a plane, and I think I'm going to fly out of here. And now I've worked for 22 years as the main anchor, covered stories in Cambodia. I've been to the White House a couple times. I've interviewed sitting presidents. So it was a great career. I really enjoyed it for the most part. I started behind the scenes at the #1 station in my hometown. Then one person said to me one day, you should be the news anchor. I think I see you as a news anchor someday. I thought, really? Oh, that's kind of cool. I think I felt I had arrived when I made it to Phoenix, though, because I was working with such a great group of professionals. These were people who were seasoned journalists. You know, you had all age groups represented. When I started in news, it was really rare to be young in a big market like Phoenix or LA or Dallas. Now, a lot of kids are coming straight out of journalism school. They don't have a lot of life experience. They haven't worked in a lot of different markets to understand different communities, how this whole world operates. These kids have gone K through 12, and then their college education, in some ways, being brainwashed and indoctrinated into liberal ideology. You might have a 24-year-old, 25-year-old producer fresh out of journalism school, and that's how they think. They're going to pick the stories that fit what they feel. So then as the anchor, you're reading this and going, wow, whew, anti-Second Amendment, pro-choice, this is the stuff that's going in. A lot of times I would read the script on air and just kind of ad-lib a little more balance in here. Sometimes you type things in and you might get on the air and you notice in the prompter, where'd that go? That's not in there anymore. Did somebody take that out? There's just a million ways that you can manipulate a story besides putting your opinion in it. You put the person who's saying what you really want them to say in great lighting, they look fantastic. You interview the other person in the middle of a parking lot at high noon, they look like a demon. You just try to find somebody who you go, oh, this person looks ridiculous. We'll interview them. I see it as a lot of manipulation. And whether it's intentional manipulation, accidental manipulation, or just people who are so entrenched in their ideology, they don't even realize that they're putting one side of the story. Because they think the other side, maybe the conservative side, is so reprehensible that it can't even be put in the story. As an older person who's lived a little bit, you start to realize, wow, these all seem to be geared towards liberal ideology. And maybe you would say something like, on balance, maybe we should bring this person in and balance that story out. And once you get kind of the stink eye a few times, you go, maybe I'll just sit here and be quiet. There are independent journalists out there doing work right now. And I think they're doing good work. The problem is if you mention those, your friends in journalism will go, they're right-wingers. No, actually, they're doing a pretty fair job. You just don't know what fair is anymore. Fair journalism seems like it's right-wing to them because we've gone so far from fair journalism. COVID was really a moment of truth for me. I saw a neighbor who was the most beautiful 90-year-old woman I'd ever seen. The other day I saw her. She's in a walker now. She looks like she's aged 100 years in 1 year. She wasn't able to do her daily walking and swimming because COVID scared everybody into their homes. I feel there was a narrative of let's keep this going really hard on COVID. You'd see an hour-long show with 45 minutes of COVID coverage, somebody who's on a ventilator, a family that got wiped out from COVID. And these are horrible stories. I'm not discounting that. But there are also thousands of stories of people who got it, maybe didn't even know they had it, or had very mild symptoms, or it felt like a cold or flu and they got over it. How many times do people hear those stories? The more typical COVID story. The country is so divided right now and everyone's afraid. And I felt like I'm putting out nonstop news that's making that worse. I felt sometimes ill reading the news. Like when you're doing something that it feels unethical or immoral, for me, I don't feel good inside. It just got really heavy. I felt very, at the end of the day, it was, I just didn't feel good about it. There was too much at stake just to scare people like that. Every night, I just wanted to rip my microphone off and just run and run. And I sat down with my husband and I said, I can't do this anymore. I worked 30 years in broadcasting. And I want to say I had some amazing moments there. I worked with great people. I had a wonderful career. But things had changed so much in the media that it just was unrecognizable. I really valued the truth and honesty. And I didn't feel that the media was interested in that anymore. I didn't expect the reaction I got when I quit at all. I put the video out when I resigned. I wanted to let the viewers know. I mean, I've been with the people of Arizona since 1994. If I'm making a personal sacrifice to walk away from my career, I want the viewers to know why. I feel that I owe them the honesty. I went to bed and I woke up the next day and my phone was, it was almost hot to touch. Holy, what the heck? What's going on? I mean, text messages galore. My inbox was full. It was all positive, all positive. Thank you for standing up. We thought something's been going on. You kind of confirmed it. You know, my relatives thought I was crazy when I was saying the news isn't always being honest with us. Thank you for confirming that. The one thing I heard the most in the comments and the emails coming my way was, I'm going to speak out now. You gave me the courage to talk to that person at work who's kind of been a real loudmouth and I'm feeling nervous about sharing my opinion. Damn it, I'm entitled to my own opinion. If you see somebody speaking out, you need to support them. If you see somebody getting canceled on Twitter, the cesspool called Twitter, step in and have the courage to say, hey, I support you. It makes a big difference if people start to see that. I do believe that a lot of the media wants us to be afraid and angry. You're a great consumer of news if you're sitting at home angry and afraid. You just keep watching it. The minute you kind of walk away from all of that, you start living your life a little more. Put the phone down, turn the TV off and go out and live a little bit of life. That's where you're going to learn.
So as you can see from Carrie's testimony,
Jadi kalau kita lihat dari apa yang diceritakan oleh Carrie,
that from her experience, the news today is unethical, dishonest, keeps us in fear, and makes us angry.
jadi Carrie ini seperti yang tadi diceritakan bahwa dia merupakan seorang pembawa berita utama dan dia mengatakan bahwa apa yang terjadi dalam media saat ini adalah pemberitaannya tidak etis, tidak jujur, mencoba mempengaruhi kita agar tetap terus takut, memiliki rasa ketakutan dan membuat kita marah.
When she said the media keeps us in fear, it just hit me why all this time we are getting sick and we're dying because it's been feeding to our mind, and so it's been suppressing our immune system.
Dan pada saat dia mengatakan bahwa media ini berusaha untuk membuat kita selalu merasa takut, itu tiba-tiba datang dalam pikiran saya, dan saya membayangkan bahwa bagaimana selama ini pikiran kita itu selalu dipenuhi dengan berita-berita yang membuat kita merasa takut, yang tanpa kita sadari itu menurunkan sistem imunitas tubuh kita.
And I asked, why do they do that?
Dan itu mendatangkan pertanyaan bagi saya, kenapa mereka harus melakukan itu?
Because it keeps us addicted to them, to keep us focused, listening over and over again.
Kenapa? Karena itulah yang membuat kita menjadi kecanduan terhadap mereka, dan membuat kita ingin untuk terus-menerus mendengarkan lagi dan lagi.
I got so tired from WhatsApp messages showing, oh, vaccines are this, vaccine are that, the pro and the cons, but it just keeps us addicting to watch it over, to read it, to watch it.
Coba Anda bayangkan bagaimana setiap kali Anda menerima pesan tentang vaksin, pesan tentang berita COVID, dan tanpa kita sadari itu hanya membuat kita menjadi kecanduan untuk terus-menerus mencari berita-berita tentang hal itu, yang bahkan kita juga tidak tahu kebenarannya.
But do you know when we're isolated from society, that keeps us addicted to fear?
Dan tahukah saudara bahwa pada saat saya mengisolasi diri saya terhadap sosial media, dan itu membuat kecanduan terhadap rasa takut itu berkurang?
No. When we're isolated from society, when we keep ourselves apart from society, that keeps us addicted to fear.
Dan pada saat kita, is it like take our menjauh?
Yes.
Dan pada saat kita menjauh daripada keramaian, masyarakat itu malah membuat kita lebih merasa takut.
I want to show you an experiment about mice.
Saya ingin menunjukkan kepada Anda sebuah percobaan tentang tikus,
in which how the mice is kept addicted to morphine.
Jadi bagaimana tikus ini selalu merasa kecanduan terhadap morfin.
And it's very interesting how this experiment was done.
Dan ini menarik ya, bagaimana mereka melakukan eksperimen ini.
Okay, even though I have the, sorry, excuse me. Sorry, yes. Let me grab the, share the screen. Okay. So I'm sorry, I have to go back and forth, or not, you will not see the subtitles. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
If there's one thing we all learned growing up, it's that drugs are bad, like really, really bad. We've been taught that addiction is inevitable and that addicts are completely irrational. But you might be surprised to learn that a lot of what we think we know about drugs and addiction comes from a series of studies done in the 1950s and 60s on rats. And it turns out that what we think we know, yeah, it might just be wrong. This is Bruce Alexander.
I'm a psychologist with Simon Fraser University.
Bruce has been studying addiction for almost 50 years. When he started back in the 70s, there was a huge public concern about heroin use and what many at the time described as a growing epidemic.
The view was that heroin was essentially a demon drug. If you took it a few times, it would flip a switch in your brain and you would be forever addicted. That was it. You were doomed. And it was in the media, it was in the movies. But in those days, there was also a primary kind of research evidence that was used to support this idea.
Much of that research used animal studies, particularly laboratory rats. Rats would be placed in really small cages called Skinner boxes.
A Skinner box is a box which is just about 3 times the size of a rat. The experiments involved putting rats in Skinner boxes with a needle which was implanted in their jugular vein, so that if the rats pressed the little lever on the wall, they would get a little surge of heroin in their bloodstream.
Press the pedal, get a shot of heroin. Press the pedal, get another shot.
And in some cases, they just kept pumping heroin into themselves to the point where they forgot to eat and would die.
Beliefs about rat studies would find their way into PSAs and Hollywood films, and they would become part of our collective understanding of just how dangerous these drugs really were.
These experiments seem to show that any creature, including even the lowly rat, if given access to heroin, would simply take lots and lots of it.
But Bruce had another idea.
What these experiments really show is that rats who are in solitary confinement will take lots of heroin.
See, rats are very social animals. Rats don't normally spend their lives in harnesses with catheters shoved in their necks. They prefer playing with other rats, running around, doing rat stuff.
To put a rat in a Skinner box is to make this very, very social creature live a life of solitary confinement.
Bruce and his colleagues wondered if maybe these rats were taking so many drugs because they were living in such an unnatural environment. So he organized his own rat experiment, but with some important differences. Most notably, he built a much bigger enclosure for them.
About half as big as my garage floor, as a matter of fact.
Bruce and his colleagues filled it with everything a rat could want: food, running wheels, and other rats to play with. He called it Rat Park. His team put a group of rats in the park and another group of rats in solitary cages. They made morphine freely available to both. The results were eye-opening. Giving the choice between plain water and morphine, the Rat Park residents chose the water. It's not like the rats in Rat Park totally abstained from morphine, but
You could say that they acted more or less like human recreational users of morphine.
Bruce and his colleagues even tried an experiment where the rats in cages were giving nothing but morphine-laced water to drink for 57 days straight.
In other words, we made sure they were good and addicted. In terms of the conventional expectation, every one of those rats should have been addicted for the rest of its life.
But when they were placed in Rat Park, those same addicted rats generally chose to drink the plain water and voluntarily went through withdrawal.
People were shocked that the rats in Rat Park had so little interest in morphine.
The Rat Park study suggested a much more complex picture of addiction than many people had suspected. Addiction wasn't simply a story of chemicals rewiring our brains or hijacking our reward centers. Other factors like environment, feeling of isolation or hopelessness, poor social bonds, and lack of control all likely play an important role in what leads to addiction. Think about the implications for how we've been treating drug addicts. They're often shamed and ostracized, thrown in jail, moved into halfway houses. Instead of integrating them into society, you could say that we're kind of isolating them in cages, like rats. Doesn't seem like such a great idea. And more importantly, it doesn't seem like it's working. At the time it was published, the Rat Park study was largely ignored, but it's finally starting to gain traction today.
It's literally taken 35 years for the Rat Park experiment to find its way into the popular understanding of addiction.
In recent years, other researchers have replicated Bruce's studies and conducted new ones of their own, adding to our increasingly complex understanding of addiction. And that's great. With concerns over drugs and addiction still dominating the headlines today, a careful analysis and understanding of the research is more vital now than ever. After all, we're never going to get the treatment right if we're getting the diagnosis wrong. Subscribe to our show page and be the first to see new episodes of Wrong.
Excuse me. Sorry, hold on, let me. So, was that an interesting video?
Menurut Anda, apakah ini merupakan video yang menarik?
That addiction does not come because of just some terrible rewiring of the brain, but because we've been isolated and we've been made to feel afraid.
Jadi kecanduan ini timbul bukan karena kita beradaptasi atau berinteraksi dengan orang, tapi justru timbul pada saat kita mengisolasi diri kita dan akhirnya kita membiarkan diri kita menjadi terinfeksi dengan ketakutan itu sendiri.
So when we allow fear to control us, it becomes addictive because we isolate ourselves from other people.
Jadi pada saat kita membiarkan ketakutan itu menguasai kita, maka kita menjadi kecanduan akan ketakutan itu karena kita mengisolasi diri kita daripada berkontak dengan orang lain.
And because of this COVID, we're told to do social distancing.
Dan karena COVID ini kita benar-benar harus melakukan social distancing.
Because the media, the fear is like, oh, because if we're close to people, then we'll get infected.
Karena apa yang dikatakan oleh media adalah kalau kita dekat-dekat dengan orang, maka kita akan bisa terinfeksi virus.
So then, how do we combat this fear? How do we combat this addiction?
Kalau begitu, bagaimana kita melawan rasa takut itu? Bagaimana kita melawan rasa stres ini?
Now, back to that same verse. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine.
Jadi kita kembali kepada apa yang ayat yang sudah diberikan tadi, bahwa hati yang gembira adalah obat yang manjur.
Okay, how does a merry heart do good like a medicine?
Bagaimana hati yang gembira itu bisa menjadi sebuah obat?
I would like to introduce you to the happy chemicals in our body.
Saya ingin memperkenalkan Anda kepada terhadap zat-zat bahagia yang ada di dalam tubuh kita.
They are called dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphin, and one more, melatonin.
Dan ada zat-zat ini dinamakan sebagai dopamin, serotonin, oksitosin, endorfin, dan ada satu lagi yaitu melatonin.
So, endorphins block are good when we feel pain. It blocks the pain perception.
Jadi endorfin ini menghalangi rasa sakit.
Yeah. So that is why when serotonin is produced, especially endorphins are produced, it lessens the feelings of pain.
Jadi pada saat hormon endorfin ini sedang diproduksi oleh tubuh kita, maka secara otomatis dia mengurangi rasa sakit.
And how do we help the body to release endorphins outside of drugs?
Jadi bagaimana caranya kita membuat agar tubuh kita bisa melepaskan hormon-hormon endorfin, tentunya bukan dengan obat.
You can do it with drugs, but how can we do it naturally?
Kita bisa melakukan itu dengan obat, tapi pertanyaannya bagaimana kita melakukan ini secara alami?
Laughing.
Tertawa.
That's why, and you saw the yell that says, happy, healthy, holy, and we're asking you to laugh. We want to help you produce the endorphins.
Itulah sebabnya di yel-yel tadi pada saat Anda mengatakan happy, healthy, holy, dan terakhirnya kami mengajak Anda untuk tertawa. Kenapa? Karena kita ingin untuk tubuh itu memproduksi hormon endorfin.
And endorphins are released when we exercise.
Dan hormon endorfin juga dilepaskan oleh tubuh pada saat kita berolahraga.
Now, many of us says, but we're doing social distancing. We can't go out. This is lockdown. All the reasons.
Jadi, selama masa COVID ini, selalu yang dijadikan alasan untuk tidak berolahraga adalah karena kita sedang dalam masa lockdown, sehingga kita tidak boleh keluar dan melakukan olahraga.
One of the exercise equipment that I bought recently is a trampoline or a rebounder.
Salah satu alat olahraga yang saya beli belakangan ini adalah trampolin, atau yang saudara bisa lihat alat yang loncat-loncat itu.
Yes, and I've been recommending it to many people.
Dan saya merekomendasikan alat ini ke banyak orang.
There's something amazing that happens when you're jumping, because it just makes you happy.
Ada sesuatu yang ya tidak bisa diungkapkan ya pada saat Anda meloncat-loncat, karena tanpa Anda sadari itu membuat Anda bahagia.
And that's why most children, when they see a trampoline, they love jumping on it because it just makes them happy.
Dan kalau Anda lihat anak-anak yang pergi untuk bermain trampolin, mereka hanya berloncat-loncat dengan tertawa, dengan berbahagia, karena tanpa alasan itu bisa membuat mereka bahagia.
And then one of my Pilates teacher recently was infected with COVID.
Dan pelatih Pilates saya baru saja terinfeksi dengan COVID.
And she told me and said, thank you, Irene, because you encouraged me to buy the trampoline. Now I can exercise at home since I can't go out of the house.
Jadi dia bilang, oh thank you Irene, karena kamu menyarankan saya untuk membeli trampolin, sehingga saya tetap bisa berolahraga walaupun di dalam rumah.
And I asked her, how are your symptoms? She says, oh, my symptoms are fine. I mean, I don't have a fever. I just cough. It's just sniffles, but that's it. I don't have it bad.
Lalu saya tanyakan, apa yang kamu rasakan? Oh, dia bilang, oh saya nggak terlalu berasa apa-apa. Saya tidak demam, saya hanya sedikit batuk dan sedikit flu, tapi yang lainnya saya baik-baik saja.
So her endorphins were working against the fear, against the cortisol from making her immune system even worse.
Jadi endorfin yang dihasilkan oleh tubuhnya itu berhasil untuk mengalahkan kortisol yang berusaha untuk menekan imun sistem tubuhnya.
Serotonins.
Hormon serotonin.
It's one of the hormone that's produced in several ways.
Hormon serotonin adalah salah satu hormon yang dapat diproduksi dalam beberapa cara.
One of them is sunbathing.
Salah satunya adalah dengan berjemur di bawah sinar matahari.
Remembering positive events.
Dan mengingat dan memikirkan hal-hal yang positif.
It's here mentioned massage and meditating. Taking the time to be with God helps increase your serotonin.
Di Dikatakan juga bahwa mengambil waktu untuk meditasi atau mengambil waktu untuk bersama-sama dengan Tuhan itu juga melepaskan hormon serotonin.
And massage too. Unfortunately, because people are too scared to be touched, no one's getting any serotonin through massage.
Dan karena ini lagi masa pandemik, tidak ada orang yang berani mendapatkan hormon serotonin lewat massage atau pijatan. Padahal pijatan itu juga menghasilkan hormon serotonin.
So I encourage for those who are married, massage each other, connect with each other, have that physical contact that helps fight the addiction to fear.
Jadi bagi Anda yang sudah menikah, saya akan menyarankan untuk lakukan ini dengan pasangan Anda. Pijat satu sama lain, punya kontak fisik yang lebih erat, sehingga itu akan menggantikan rasa addiction, rasa kecanduan kita terhadap rasa takut.
Another thing is dopamine.
Dan hormon yang lainnya adalah dopamin.
And this is produced when we laugh, when we sing. That's why we taught you that song. They call it the march, Kesehatan. It's actually a march, not Mars.
Itulah sebabnya kita mengajarkan lagu Mars Kesehatan. Kenapa? Karena kita ingin Anda untuk memproduksi hormon dopamin melalui menyanyi dan tertawa.
So if you allow fear to control you, you can't laugh, you don't sing, you're too scared to do anything that helps the hormone, this all happy chemicals to be released in the body naturally.
Jadi kalau Anda membiarkan ketakutan itu mengontrol hidup Anda, maka Anda tidak akan mendapatkan hormon dopamin, Anda juga tidak akan mendapatkan hormon-hormon lain yang sebenarnya bisa diproduksi tubuh secara alami.
And then there's oxytocin.
Dan juga adalah hormon oksitosin.
We call it the love hormone.
Kita katakan hormon inilah hormon cinta.
This is released when we're hugging people. Now with social distance, even hugging your spouse, you don't want to do it.
Dan hormon ini bisa didapatkan melalui memeluk pasangan Anda atau memeluk tidak harus memeluk pasangan ya, bisa juga memeluk anak, tapi dengan pelukan itu bisa mendatangkan hormon oksitosin. Tetapi karena masa pandemik ini, bahkan kita juga takut untuk memeluk pasangan kita.
Having a healthy physical relationship with your spouse helps produce the love hormone.
Dan memiliki hubungan fisik yang intim bersama pasangan Anda secara regular itu juga akan membantu untuk membentuk hormon oksitosin.
And another hormone that needs to be produced is melatonin.
Dan hormon lainnya yang sangat diperlukan untuk diproduksi tubuh kita adalah hormon melatonin.
And to naturally get the sleep at night, make sure the room is dark and do so between 9 to 5 a.m.
Dan hormon melatonin ini hanya akan diproduksi dalam ruangan yang gelap, dan pastikan pada saat Anda tidur, ruangan Anda gelap, dan itu diproduksi antara jam 9 sampai jam 5 pagi.
Make sure there is no light coming in. That's why make sure any type of electronic devices that brings out light, you have to remove it from the room.
Jadi pastikan bahwa di dalam ruangan tidak ada sinar apapun, termasuk alat elektronik yang bisa menghasilkan sinar.
And make sure you're in bed at around 9, because if you sleep later, the production decreases.
Dan pastikan Anda tidur antara jam ini. Kenapa? Karena kalau di luar dari jam ini, maka produksinya akan menurun.
Then the function of melatonin hormone is to repair the body.
Dan apa gunanya hormon melatonin ini? Hormon melatonin ini sangat berguna untuk memperbaiki tubuh.
If you're fearful, if you're stressed and you're not sleeping well, you're not producing the melatonin hormone that will help repair the body. Pam, did I lose you? Okay, I lost my translator.
Sorry, I lost. Okay. Can you say it again?
So the reason why we need melatonin is because if we're not sleeping well at night, we're not producing enough melatonin, so we can't so the body can't repair itself.
Ya, sehingga pada saat hormon melatonin tidak diproduksi secara cukup dalam tubuh kita, mengakibatkan tubuh kita tidak bisa memperbaiki fungsi-fungsi organ tersebut, karena hormon melatonin ini diperlukan untuk memperbaiki fungsi organ tubuh.
Now, I want to follow up another video that is related to just now about the addiction video.
Saya ingin, can you say it again?
I want to show another video that is a follow-up to that previous video I
Okay.
just showed.
Saya ingin menunjukkan sebuah video yang merupakan lanjutan daripada video yang tadi.
Sorry, I have to shift again to share screen. Oops, excuse me.
You know, 8 years ago, I couldn't get a needle out of my arm. And today, like, I have a rope with someone else's life on the end of it. And that's all been made possible by Phoenix.
We lose a loved one every 4 minutes to an overdose. And the problem is as big as it's ever been. So we have to find a new approach. We use the inherent transformative power of sports and community to help people heal from substance use disorder and ultimately to transform their lives.
Awesome, nice work.
For me, drinking and drugging was how I tried to address self-esteem wounds from when I was a little kid. I was dealing with a lot of depression. The last night I used, I realized like how my life was going to end if I kept on with my addiction. I was on a bender and I just couldn't imagine somebody having to tell my mom that that's how I died. And that was the last night I used. For me, getting into the boxing gym was really transformational because the coaches believed in me even if I didn't yet believe in myself. Once I started to hold that belief, that helped me start to heal from my addiction. That was like the foundation of what later would become Phoenix. I think one thing that's special about coming down to Moab for the Phoenix trip is that people come from everywhere to be part of this trip.
For me, pills turned into heroin, and it's just a really slippery slope from there. My first Phoenix event was at the rock climbing gym. I met Todd and Kaylee that night. To be able to relate to somebody and know that they've been through some of the same things that you have kind of makes you have a connection to that person.
So I got arrested 7 times in 6 months, and one of the things the drug court judge recommended to me was that I go to Phoenix. Nobody there was ashamed of the fact that they were in recovery. Yeah, that kind of started to change my perception of it all right there.
I think at the height of my addiction, I did heroin every day, all day. All my muscles had atrophied and my kidneys were failing. During my drinking and using, relationships with others were never healthy. But Phoenix has shown me that we get close to people through sharing our struggle. David is the epitome of what recovery can look like. When I first met him, he was living in a shelter and had nothing.
Let's do it.
Climbing. Climb on.
You know, Phoenix doesn't give people strength. It helps them tap into their intrinsic strength.
There you go, nice.
It's really not about who we were in our addiction. It's about who we are in our recovery.
Nice.
Yeah!
There it is. Look at that.
Awesome.
What did you think? 6 months ago you were going to be doing this?
I know. This is it's awesome. A little scraped up, but
One thing I think that's special about the Phoenix when people come here is that together you're kind of looking out at the greater adversity of the rock climb or the hike. And in that struggle, you build a bond.
Very good.
And in those bonds, you find the support you need to stay sober. It's like kind of getting out of a burning building, right? Like there's some responsibility to reach back in and help the next person out because they remember what it was like to have somebody there for them when they first stepped into recovery.
And walk over to the right a little. Oop. There you go. Nope, not that way. Oop.
Can you guys bring it in kind of tight? One thing that I do every year is I carry one little pebble with me, just sort of as a memory of folks we've lost. If you have somebody you're thinking about today, feel free to carry a pebble, and we'll circle up and talk about that a little bit after we go to the arch. This whole trip really is kind of a gratitude trip for these lives we get in recovery. And I know a bunch of you guys picked up a little pebble on the way up here. And I always like to do that just to hold in my heart, those people that we lost. My mom passed this year from Alzheimer's. So this one's from my mom. This little sweet woman who stuck with me through my addiction. She loved Phoenix. She loved all you guys. If anybody else brought a pebble up here and they want to put it here, and every year when we come visit here, we can think of those folks.
Todd and I?
We're married. A lot of our relationships started right here in Moab. Phoenix has played a big role in that.
Yeah, it introduced us to a way of life that we could share, and that really our relationship is founded on the adventure that Phoenix showed us is possible.
In 11 years, over 24,000 people have come to Phoenix. The more people we can touch with this, the more people can sit around fires like this in communities across the country.
We as humans, all of us, whether you struggle with addiction or not, are trying to figure out how to connect somewhere where we feel accepted and loved. Imagine if, as a society, we could help give that to each other. It sounds like a lofty goal, but I don't think it is.
So, the reason why I shared this video with you.
Jadi kenapa saya membagikan video ini kepada kalian, kepada kita semua?
We've become so afraid of COVID that we can't even make a community with each other.
Jadi karena ketakutan kita kepada COVID, kita bahkan tidak bisa membuat connecting kepada orang lain.
So I would like to suggest for Bali's ministry, have some sort of a Zoom meeting where you exercise, with each other. I don't know what type, but so that you can feel connected, since physically you can't even connect anymore.
Jadi yang saya ingin sarankan adalah di dalam setiap komunitas yang ada, kalau kita tidak bisa bertemu secara langsung, paling tidak lakukan hal-hal atau kegiatan-kegiatan lain, apakah itu olahraga bersama atau kegiatan apapun yang bisa membuat kita terkonek satu dengan yang lain.
Yeah, have 1 week okay, this Sunday we'll have exercise program where you do aerobics together online.
Jadi mungkin minggu depan kita akan mengadakan aerobik online.
Yeah. Recently, my friends and I, we decided to do eating together through Zoom.
Jadi saya dan komunitas saya bahkan memutuskan untuk kita membuat acara makan bersama melalui Zoom.
It was just last Sunday.
Dan itu kami lakukan hari Minggu yang lalu.
So 6 o'clock in Jakarta and 7 o'clock in Bali, because one of the person that lived in Bali.
Jadi kami beberapa yang tinggal di Jakarta dan ada juga yang tinggal di Bali. Jadi kita lakukan itu jam 6 sore di Jakarta dan jam 7 malam di Bali. Kita makan bersama lewat Zoom.
So in Zoom, we all took a picture of what we were eating. I ordered vegetarian food to my friend in Bali and another vegetarian dish to my friend in Jakarta.
Jadi kita melakukan makanan vegetarian yang ada di Bali maupun di Jakarta. Bahkan kita juga bisa saling mengirim makanan.
Yeah, so I had a friend order something from Bali to Gojek to my friend, and I had I ordered the food for my friend in Bali through Gojek, through GoFood.
Jadi makanan itu kami order lewat GoFood. Jadi ada teman saya yang memesankan untuk yang di Bali, juga memesankan lewat GoFood untuk teman-teman yang di Jakarta.
So there were 8 of us. So we were eating, looking at each other, showing our food, laughing, enjoying each other's company.
Jadi kita makan bersama, kita saling menunjukkan makanan kita, kemudian kita tertawa bersama, kita menikmati kebersamaan itu bersama-sama.
And so this connection which the video showed is so important to combat the fear.
Jadi koneksi atau hubungan yang tadi ditunjukkan oleh video tadi itu sangat penting untuk mengalahkan rasa ketakutan itu.
So being a part of a community and exercising with that community is really, it helps to combat the addiction to fear.
Jadi menjadi bagian dari sebuah komunitas dan melakukan olahraga bersama dengan komunitas itu akan sangat membantu kita untuk melawan rasa kecanduan terhadap rasa takut.
I don't know how tight is the PPKM in Bali, but I think it's still okay for you, if in a group of 5, for you to just go out in the sun and just exercise together.
Saya tidak tahu seberapa ketat PPKM di Bali, tetapi sebenarnya mungkin ya kita tidak perlu berkumpul beramai-ramai sampai 20-30 orang, tapi mungkin Anda yang tinggal berdekatan berlima atau bertiga atau beberapa orang bisa membentuk kelompok untuk sama-sama berolahraga di bawah sinar matahari.
And you know, I like what the video showed, that they did not forget the people that was lost, that had died.
Di dalam video tadi menceritakan bahwa mereka tidak melupakan orang yang sudah meninggal.
In fact, took time to grieve for the people they lost, but they also appreciated that they were alive. We must do that.
Jadi di saat kita bersedih akan orang-orang yang kehilangan, di saat kita bersedih mungkin karena ada teman sahabat kita yang meninggal, tetapi di waktu yang sama kita juga bisa merasa bersyukur akan kehidupan yang masih kita miliki sampai hari ini.
Because of coronavirus, we trust more in wearing mask.
Kita lebih percaya terhadap menggunakan masker.
Notice the word I said, we trust more. I didn't say we don't trust, we trust more.
Jadi tolong digarisbawahi apa yang saya coba sampaikan. Saya tidak katakan bahwa kita tidak percaya ya, tetapi kita lebih percaya.
In getting vaccines.
Mendapatkan vaksin.
In social distancing.
Menjaga jarak,
in hoax news,
dan berbagai berita-berita hoax di sana.
But we do not look at God anymore, and so we don't trust in God as much as we should.
Dan itu membuat kita jadi tidak melihat kepada Tuhan lebih sering, dan juga kita tidak percaya kepada Tuhan sebagaimana seharusnya kita percaya.
Once again, I am not saying not to wear mask.
Sekali lagi, saya tidak katakan bahwa jangan menggunakan masker.
I am not saying not to get vaccinated.
Saya juga tidak katakan bahwa Anda tidak perlu mendapat vaksin.
I am not saying not to do social distancing.
Saya juga tidak katakan bahwa Anda jangan lakukan social distancing.
But trusting in all the above things more to keep us safe rather than spending more time with God and trusting to keep us safe from the coronavirus is keeping us fearful.
Tetapi mempercayai hal-hal di atas lebih banyak untuk menjaga diri kita lebih aman daripada menghabiskan lebih banyak waktu dengan Tuhan dan percaya sepenuhnya bahwa Tuhan sanggup untuk menjaga kita dan menjauhkan kita dari coronavirus, itulah yang terus-menerus membuat kita hidup di dalam rasa takut.
I was talking to my doctor friend.
Saya berbicara dengan teman saya yang seorang dokter.
And as I was sharing how I felt, she agreed to what I said.
Dan saya sharing dengan dia tentang apa yang saya sampaikan.
And then she sent me a picture of what we call it, the Swiss cheese pictures about the things that protects us, I guess.
Oke, dan dia dia membagikan kepada saya sebuah gambar tentang sebuah gambar ini Swiss cheese.
Yeah, that has holes.
Yang memiliki lubang-lubang.
So this is the picture.
Nah, mungkin kita bisa lihat dari gambar ini.
Okay, the first layer of the Swiss cheese is physical distance, stay at home if sick.
Jadi layer yang pertama adalah menjaga jarak dan tinggal di rumah apabila Anda sakit.
There's still holes.
Tetap ada lubang.
Look at the second layer, mask. There's still holes.
Lihat di layer yang kedua, ada masker, tetap ada lubang.
Look at the third layer, hand hygiene, cough etiquette, still has holes.
Lihat di layer yang ketiga, tangan yang bersih, cuci tangan, dan juga cara batuk yang aman, menutup mulut pada saat batuk. Tetap ada lubang.
Look at the fourth layer, avoiding touching your face, still has holes.
Lihat di layer yang keempat, jangan sentuh-sentuh aja, tetap aja ada lubang.
And then look at if crowded, limit your time, still has holes.
Lihat di layer yang kelima, apabila di keramaian, jangan habiskan waktu di tengah keramaian, tetap ada lubangnya.
Look at the final layer, vaccine, still has holes.
Lihat di layer yang terakhir, vaksin, tetap ada lubangnya.
So that's why you hear people who has COVID, and yet they have been vaccinated twice.
Itulah sebabnya kenapa Anda tetap melihat, Anda mendengarkan berita bagi mereka yang terpapar virus ini walaupun mereka sudah divaksin 2 kali.
If we're going to put our trust in all this health protocol and yet still be fearful, all we're doing is opening ourselves up to the risk of infection from COVID.
Jadi yang saya ingin coba sampaikan adalah apabila Anda mencoba menaruh kepercayaan Anda terhadap semua protokol-protokol kesehatan ini dan lebih percaya terhadap protokol kesehatan ini maka sebenarnya kita sedang menaruh diri kita terhadap resiko untuk terpapar virus ini.
Practicing the health protocols is good, but it does not protect you from the virus if you are fearful.
Jadi melakukan protokol-protokol kesehatan adalah hal yang baik, tetapi itu tidak akan memprotek kita daripada virus kalau kita tetap hidup di dalam rasa ketakutan.
Again, remember, don't misunderstand it. I am not saying do not practice. I'm saying do practice, but place your trust in God.
Sekali lagi, yang saya mau sampaikan adalah saya tidak katakan bahwa jangan lakukan health protokol kesehatan ya. Yang saya mau sampaikan adalah lakukan protokol kesehatan, tetapi tetap taruh kepercayaanmu kepada Tuhan.
Dr. Neil Latney, one of Chinese club sets doctors that we refer to in regards to scientific research.
Jadi Dr. Neil Latney adalah salah seorang dokter yang kami dari CMC refer untuk mereka untuk research penelitian saintifik.
He says in this article that he produced, the largest determinant of whether you get sick is your immune system.
Dia mengatakan di dalam sebuah tulisan yang dia tampilkan bahwa peran terbesar yang menyebabkan engkau sakit adalah imun sistemmu.
Therefore, New Start principles are primary. Look the word primary in self-protection.
Itulah sebabnya prinsip-prinsip New Start itu adalah hal yang utama di dalam melakukan penjagaan terhadap diri.
Go ahead, do your health protocols.
Tetap lakukan protokol kesehatan,
but practice New Start and especially trust in God.
Tetapi tetap lakukan pola hidup sehat New Start khususnya di dalam unsur trust in God, percaya kepada Tuhan.
When you fully trust in God to help you practice New Start, God keeps us safe.
Pada saat kita percaya sepenuhnya kepada Tuhan untuk membantu kita di dalam mempraktekkan pola hidup New Start, maka Tuhan yang akan menjaga kita tetap aman.
When we fully trust in God to help us practice New Start, all 5 hormones will be produced naturally.
Pada saat kita lebih percaya Tuhan, mempercayakan Tuhan untuk membantu kita mempraktekkan pola hidup sehat New Start, maka 5 hormon tadi akan diproduksi secara alami oleh tubuh kita.
So please don't get angry when someone chooses not to wear a mask. Keep your immune system healthy. That's my responsibility, your responsibility, and trust God to keep me and you safe.
Jadi jangan pernah marah kalau Anda melihat ada orang lain yang memilih untuk tidak memakai masker. Tetap jaga imun sistem kita tetap sehat, itu adalah tanggung jawab kita. Dan percaya sepenuhnya kepada Tuhan bahwa Tuhan akan menjaga kita untuk tetap aman.
Don't get angry when someone chooses not to get Still keep your immune system healthy.
Pastikan bahwa Anda memproduksi imun sistem yang cukup buat tubuh Anda.
So don't get angry when someone chooses to break social distancing rules. Trust in God to keep you safe.
Jangan marah kalau Anda melihat ada orang yang melanggar protokol kesehatan dengan tidak social distancing. Tetapi percayalah bahwa Tuhan tetap akan menolong Anda.
I showed you a picture of Turkey because about a month ago I went to Turkey.
Kenapa saya tunjukkan foto Turki kepada saudara? Karena bulan yang lalu saya baru dari Turki.
And I realized I was such a fearful person that I was always looking things at a negative way.
Dan saya akhirnya menyadari bahwa saya adalah orang yang selalu melihat segala sesuatu dari sisi yang negatif.
When I saw someone not wearing their mask, I got angry.
Pada saat saya melihat ada orang yang tidak pakai masker, saya jadi marah.
When I saw someone not practicing social distance, I got angry.
Pada saat saya melihat ada orang yang tidak mempraktekkan social distancing, saya jadi marah.
See, that was my stupidity.
Dan itu adalah sebuah kebodohan.
Because by getting angry and he's happy, he's well, he has positive outlook, I was suppressing my immune system.
Karena pada saat saya marah, pada saat saya stres, pada saat saya kesel, pada dia yang terlihat happy memproduksi hormon-hormon yang bagus untuk tubuhnya, sedangkan saya dengan kemarahan saya malah menurunkan imun sistem saya.
And I'm thinking ill thoughts about the person. It's like, oh, I hope you get in jail. I hope this, I hope that. See, the way we think is our responsibility.
Jadi, Anda ingat pada saat kita marah kepada orang lain, kita menyumpahi mereka, kita marah, kita katakan biar kamu masuk penjara dan lain-lain, ingat bahwa apa yang masuk ke dalam pikiran kita, itu yang akan diproduksi oleh tubuh kita.
When we choose to be angry at someone for what we think is carelessness, we are trusting in government, we're trusting in media, we're trusting in people to keep us safe more than we trust in God to keep us safe.
Ingat, pada saat Anda memilih untuk marah kepada seseorang yang Anda pikir ceroboh, maka Anda sebenarnya lebih percaya kepada government, lebih percaya kepada media-media yang memberikan berita hoax, dan lebih percaya kepada orang lain untuk menjaga Anda tetap aman, lebih daripada Anda percaya kepada Tuhan untuk menjaga Anda tetap aman.
And then we say negative stuff like, oh, why the government doesn't enforce the rules? Why? No, we are responsible for our own actions.
Jadi, berhenti mengkhawatirkan hal-hal itu, kita harus bertanggung jawab atas apa yang kita lakukan.
When we choose to believe what media says and be led by fear and anger, we are choosing to suppress our own immune system by that same fear and anger.
Jadi pada saat kita memilih untuk lebih percaya kepada apa yang dikatakan oleh media-media di luar sana dan membiarkan kita dikontrol oleh kekhawatiran, oleh ketakutan, dan oleh kemarahan, maka kita memilih untuk membiarkan imun sistem kita diturunkan, imun sistem kita menjadi rendah karena kemarahan dan ketakutan itu kita sendiri.
You and I have the power of choice of how we think.
Anda dan saya memiliki kuasa untuk mengendalikan apa yang harus kita pilih untuk kita pikirkan.
So, for those of us who have a relationship with God, whether you're Christian or not, we need to trust in a higher power than ourselves.
Jadi bagi Anda, apakah Anda Kristen atau bukan, Anda perlu percaya kepada suatu kuasa yang lebih tinggi daripada kuasa yang bisa kita lakukan di dalam hidup kita.
As a Christian, God has revealed to us Christians that we need to trust Him with all our heart. We cannot lean on our own understanding, and in all my ways acknowledge God, and He shall direct my path.
Dan dikatakan bahwa kita perlu mempercayai Tuhan dengan segenap hati dan jangan bersandar kepada pengertianmu sendiri. Akuilah Dia dalam segala lakumu dan Dia akan menunjukkan jalanmu.
He even says, "Have I not commanded you?" This is a command.
Jadi bahkan Tuhan berkata, bukankah sudah kuperintahkan kepadamu? Ini sebuah perintah.
Be strong and courageous.
Jangan takut, jadilah kuat.
Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged.
Jangan takut, jangan menjadi kecewa.
For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go.
Karena Tuhan Allahmu yang akan pergi kemanapun engkau pergi.
I hope what I've shared has been a blessing.
Dan saya berharap apa yang saya bagikan ini akan menjadi sebuah berkat.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. God bless you all.